This is your Barbados Today Morning News Update for Thursday, April 18th, 2019. Thanks for joining us. I'm Carol Williams. Some parents are being raked over the coals for forcing their underage daughters, whom adult males have gotten pregnant, not to report the matter to childcare authorities, while expressing outrage that this continues to be a problem and pointing to a case in which a 14-year-old girl now has 2 children. Minister of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs, Cynthia Ford, said this is unacceptable.
I'm one of the most disturbed mothers, grandmothers, auntie of Barbados because of our young girls who are being impregnated, not by schoolboys alone, because I can understand that, but by hard-back men. And I believe that this is an integral part of what we have to work towards to stamp it out and bring those perpetrators to justice. It is wrong. Last week I saw about 20 of them. Granted that this year they are a little older than most years. Nobody wants a 14-year-old girl with 2 babies. I saw 2 of them last year in the same environment. On the second baby at 14 years old, where are the men?
Minister Ford was speaking during the launch of the FMH Sandy Lane Charitable Trust Helpline at the Lloyd Erskine Sandyford Center yesterday. Former Government Minister Hamilton Lashley is not impressed with the results of the recently ended gun amnesty. 32 illegal firearms, some of which have been described as quite ancient, and 1,758 rounds of ammunition were collected during the one-week period. While noting that many of the guns on the streets are far more advanced than what have been netted by police, Lashley called for a serious social intervention. He warned that the country may be currently experiencing a lull in the gun violence, which has already claimed 12 lives so far for the year.
If we're going to successfully stabilize the communities across Barbados, there must be a dialogue with the real community leaders, Somehow, you cannot cherry pick community leaders. The community knows the real leaders. You have to bring them to the table. You have to put resources behind them. You have to find programs for the youth. You have to find work for the youth, even if at the moment it's short-term work until the economy stabilizes in Barbados. You cannot afford for Barbados to run into a state like some communities in Jamaica, in St. Catherine, in Spanish Town, etc., where the communities are dependent more upon the outlaws of the community than the lawful peace-abiding citizens.
Progress is being made in negotiations with government on an external debt restructuring plan. That's according to Economic Advisor to the Barbados External Creditor Committee, Dr. Delisle Worrell. Government has already missed the March 31st deadline for reaching a deal and hasn't announced a new timeline just yet. Dr. Worrell also stayed clear of committing to a date by which creditors are expecting a deal.
Yes, I think that there has been progress in the discussions, and we are hopeful that, based on this principle of achieving a win-win situation, that we will. Yeah. But there are many ways to, to skin a cat, and that is what we're saying. That we don't want one that, we want to arrive through a process of negotiation and discussion at a solution which everyone is comfortable with. And that's very important for the future of the country, because if foreign investors do not end up with securities that they are comfortable with, marketable securities that other people will want to buy, then new investment, it becomes that much more difficult to attract new investment to Barbados.
In sports, Romario King with 108 and Camario Grant with 137 not out ensured that Trinidad and Tobago and Barbados register huge victories in round 3 of Cricket West Indies Under 15 Super 50 Cup being played in Antigua. Barbados and Trinidad and Tobago defeated the Leeward Islands and Jamaica by 134 runs and 151 runs respectively. The win sees Trinidad and Tobago top the table with no defeats so far. In the third match, Guyana held off a valiant effort from Windward Islands to register a 25-run victory.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
In the region, Cuba and Venezuela are facing new sanctions and other punitive measures from the United States, which is seeking to ratchet up pressure on Havana to end its support for Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton said the U.S. was targeting Cuba's military and intelligence services, including a military-owned airline, for additional sanctions and was tightening travel and trade restrictions against the island.
The Cuban regime has spread its ideological influence into Venezuela and throughout Maduro's regime. Today, we are also announcing 5 additions to the Cuba restricted list, which prohibits direct financial transactions with entities tied to Cuba's military, intelligence, and security services and personnel. These additions include Aero Gaviota, owned by the Cuban military, among others. These actions should be a signal to all that working with the Cuban military and intelligence services will not be tolerated.
The Cuban government has denounced the measures as an attack on international law. The EU and Canada swiftly condemned the move, warning that enforcement of the law would lead to reprisals in Europe. And finally, Sudan's military rulers have arrested 2 brothers of deposed President Omar al-Bashir as hundreds of people marched in the capital, calling for a swift handover of power to civilian leadership. A spokesman for the Transitional Military Council said yesterday that the brothers were taken into custody as part of a continuing campaign of arrests against symbols and leaders of the previous regime. The announcement came as sources said Sudanese authorities have transferred al-Bashir from house arrest to a maximum security prison. Demonstrators have vowed to stay on the streets until there is immediate move to civilian rule, as we hear in this BBC report.
The news that's been coming through today has been that the former president has been put in prison across the river from here, in a prison that for 70 years has been known as a place that political prisoners go to. That's clearly designed as a message. Although you talk to people here, they see the concessions that are being made by the military and they really don't think it's enough. That's why they're refusing to move. That's why they're still here until they get what they want, which is proof that real change is going to come to this country.
And that's news, but for the very latest, visit our website at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook. And sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media in bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. You can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM. I'm Carol Williams. Have a good day.